It's Wednesday, WTF Wednesday. That's not to say there were not glitches, and there are still glitches happening.
Welcome to WTF Wednesday, where every week we talk about stupid that we've encountered that you should try to avoid.
It's Wednesday.
Whoops. Oh my God.
Stupid WTF, Mercury in retrograde.
I wanted to click the video off, but I started it again. So
my Wi-Fi turned off on its own, and then you couldn't hear me. When is Mercury out of retrograde? When does it go forward?
I actually don't know. I usually know, but I don't know. I think I'm in complete denial about it.
WTF. You trust a device like your laptop to be ready for you.
Yeah.
And then your laptop is not present, not accounted for. Does that happen to people in their businesses?
I think so. And in fact, just as a little preface, we were going to do our regularly scheduled formatting for this week's WTF, and you were like, you know what, let's go live again. I was like, okay.
When you say regular formatting, you mean we record a video and then you spend 4.5 days editing it.
Not 4.5 days, maybe 4.5 hours, only because it
feels like 4.5 days.
It's sheer fun for me. It's sheer fun. Editing I love it. I love it so much. So the thing is, today with WTF Wednesday, I kind of dubbed this episode as Where's the Trust? And the reason I did that was because in last week's segment, we talked about what did we talk about? We talked about making sure you have all the right people working for you, with you.
Well, that's what we're talking about this week. But where's the trust? I mean, it's like, I trust my laptop, 2 minutes to showtime, and we got to go live at 1 p.m. and at 12:58, I put my headset on, I plug it in, I trust my laptop to, so I click the link and I get a warning message that I have no internet connection. Wait.
Yeah, but we were only a minute late. So that's okay.
But this is indicative of if you have someone in your employ or someone that you consider an advisor on your council of advisors, maybe your CPA, your attorney,
or your
when
banker.
You trust them, or your banker, when you trust them to look out for your best interest, maybe what the WTF?
Well, I think let's narrow it down a little bit to, especially with the experience that we had with the SBA disaster relief financing and the number of people that got declined. And basically it's because of how the loan application was completed. And even with disaster financing.
Well, how I'm sorry, to be clear, how they completed the application, not how we completed it.
No. Yeah, no, of course. Yes. Which is how they came to
We
us.
fixed it afterwards.
Right. But even pre-COVID and even besides disaster relief financing, there is the dreaded application. And you have 30 years in the mortgage banking.
You have 30 years in insurance.
And I also had to fill out applications.
We filled out applications. That's what we did.
Right. So the thing is, it can make or break the business.
Bingo.
And so
it can make or break your application process,
Yes.
And so the question becomes, who are you trusting to either fill out that application, or if you're doing it yourself, who are you trusting for advice on how to completely and correctly fill? Are you watching a bunch of YouTube videos?
Yeah. Exactly. So, I mean, Trevor, since you did all of the completion of the applications for PPP and the EIDL.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that you saw that were problematic for the business owners that, even the banker, the bankers got the applications.
Well, let me answer one question. So the problematic was, applications in and of themselves can be complicated. And the way you solve problems that you encounter in a particular application is based on your experience. If you have a lot of experience like we do, then when you encounter a problem with an application, you can basically come up with a solution, out of intuition, experience, knowledge. So, for example, with the PPP, I read the CARES Act, and it says in the CARES Act what the SBA will require of a business to apply for a Paycheck Protection Program loan. Except banks then, on their own, for a variety of reasons, which we've discussed before, which we don't need to go into now, but banks on their own added other layers to the application process, which were not relevant directly to what the instructions were from SBA. So, in multiple applications for PPP with multiple banks and lenders, but all kinds of different situations. There was the one bank that we applied for a church that's a client, and we went to their bank where they have a business operating account. We went to the bank's website, and the church is a 501c3 non-for-profit organization. There was no facility within the application online to get past questions that were specific to a profit generating business. You couldn't get past one screen where it wanted to know what your gross profit was. Well, a church doesn't have a gross profit. What's your cost of goods sold, employees and so forth. So that's just one example of the challenges. We had one as recently as last week, the day before the deadline we put in, where the bank wanted 6 months of the company's business operating bank statements. Well, we didn't have those because we didn't collect them because they're not required for the PPP program. I know why the bank was looking for them, because the bank, in my opinion, was thinking, oh, we're going to review these bank statements and see if we can shift this client into or sell this client some other products by looking at their revenue. Or maybe it was just a way the bank had of verifying revenue representations that the business made on the application.
Or maybe or maybe that's just their process, and people tend to do the same things that they've always done.
There's that, but we also don't, it was all so all over the place from one bank to another. I didn't see any rhyme or reason to it. And but more to the point, the fact that it was PPP said do this, do this, do this, do this. Simon Says. It was real simple.
Yeah.
The fact that you're asking for business operating bank statements is not germane to the PPP requirements.
Right.
So it was not, and it couldn't have given the bank the proper information they need. And in the end, that kind of thing can be an obstacle to a company applying for that type of financing. We heard from other clients that signed up with this after the fact how they had applied directly to their bank, and the loan representative or the bank representative changed the payroll calculation, what's called the average monthly payroll, the average monthly payroll, or AMP, that goes on the PPP application. The client, the business owner, was applying and had used information from their accountant or from their bookkeeper or on their own calculations to create the AMP number. And under the CARES Act, basically, all the onus, all the responsibilities on the business owner to make a representation. This is what my payroll is and this is what I am, 2.5 times that. And we heard stories about bankers changing those numbers on lower to a lower number, and people were getting less money than they were entitled to.
Yeah.
If you think of this week, the SBA and the Treasury are finally releasing information about, who received PPP funds. If you think of very large businesses that have access to an in-house bookkeeping staff, accounting department, or chief financial officer, these are businesses who don't need someone like us. And so for them to fill out an application, easy peasy. But our purpose of our WTF today is to talk to these small business owners about who you are trusting. Are you trusting your banker to properly fill out the application? Are you questioning your banker? We have a client whose bookkeeper applied for an economic injury disaster loan. And the numbers are completely wrong. The CPA who referred the client to us was not consulted by the bookkeeper to get accurate numbers. And
that's a problem.
The business was approved by the SBA, but for substantially less money than they should be getting. So I guess that's our question for today. Who are you? The application process is complicated enough. So who are you trusting to fill it out and or to provide the information that goes into the application?
Well, I think too, do you think that some of the CPAs, well, we have we have a couple of friends that are CPAs that, they know their limitations, they know their boundaries of, how to work with the client and the type of information that is required for this kind of process. I think there are other CPAs that might feel like that they should be the ones doing this because they have access to all the financials that would help that would get the business.
And there are stories of a lot of CPAs who were involved, and some of the CPAs we know did provide that direct assistance, filling out the applications with and or for their clients. But again, we came across more than a few situations where the CPAs incorrectly filled out the application, and the business ultimately was approved for the funding. But then the business came to us and said, "Ed, I think
I need more.
should have gotten more money." And
Yeah.
then when we got involved and we took a look at it, we said, not only was it filled out incorrectly, but at this point, there's nothing we can do. We can't assist you, in some of the cases. We had one customer who filled out his own. He's a small sole proprietor, and he filled out his own economic injury disaster loan, for which actually he was denied by the SBA. And we got involved, and I quickly saw, once I looked at his tax returns, I quickly saw the mistake he had made in completing the application, that, he put expenses that exceeded revenue, when in fact he did not have to disclose those expenses in the format that's required for the SBA.
That's
so
really important.
We're able to turn it around and get it reconsidered and approved for.
And he got money. He was very grateful for that. Well, so the PPP was extended.
Yep.
And EIDL is still open, and there is money out there to be had for businesses that might be, even though it's been 3 months, they may be thinking about like, oh, actually the squeeze it's a little bit more of a squeeze now because it's been 3 months of maybe revenue.
Well, the money's still available. So, as you see at the bottom of the screen here, how you trust professionals to manage your financing. I think we've talked about this before, about how at Aurora Consulting we speak bankish. That's the language we speak. But also because you, Linda, were involved with convincing underwriters to approve insurance requests, right, for business owners. And I helped people borrow money as a direct lender for 30 years to buy houses or to refinance a house. Our mindset is, we're looking at it, we're capable of looking at it from the underwriter's viewpoint. Underwriters are assessing risk. But consumers and or business owners, when applying for credit and applying for financing, are more prone to kind of, in a way, beg for it. Like, let me let me present this information and hope that I get approved. And so you have to change that mindset, whether you're doing this work yourself, whether you're gathering information. It's thundering and lightning.
My gosh, it's coming.
Whether you're gathering information from your advisors, your CPA, your bookkeeper, etc., or if you're trusting someone else to do the application, you or that person has to have the mindset of, how is this information presented that creates an environment where the underwriter can properly assess the risk of my request, and I can get the best result.
Yeah. So I think, with the applications and certain things that business owners are trying to achieve when it comes to underwriting, I certainly had the experience of business owners not thinking the same way that the underwriters think. For instance, the business owner will have higher revenues as a wish list or a projected revenue because business owners we're ambitious, so we want to aspire to greater things in the next level. Well, you don't want to do that with an underwriter, because then if you're going to pay for it, you're going to pay for a premium for a business that isn't as big as it should be right now. So it's kind of like with financing, you have to just be careful with how you are completing your application, how you're answering the questions, how you're navigating the process, et cetera, et cetera.
What we've seen is that business owners more often than not are not they're not overreaching. In fact, more often than not, what we're seeing is business owners are asking for less than they're actually entitled to. But they need more to survive. So that's where we at Aurora Consulting come in handy, I think.
So what do you think next week's video is going to be?
Couldn't tell you. Not going to make that mistake twice.
I know. Let's keep it open.
I blurted it out last week, and
let's keep it open, and especially with I know we've been talking a lot about SBA financing. I personally would like to talk about things that business owners can do now with kind of getting back into the swing of things post, funding with the disaster relief. So we'll have to figure out what we're going to talk about next week. But just popping on here to say WTF, and thank you for joining us. And we will see you next week. Have a great week. And the thunder is here and the rain is coming. Stay safe, everyone.
Stay safe.
Bye.
See you soon.